Okay, we're back. Sorry about the long wait, but it's COVID. What can I say? I think everybody, frankly, has more time on their hands, but the inability to do anything about it. So, let's have a look. What have I done in the meantime? Okay, so we've tidied up a lot of the rat's nest of wires and wires and wires, but the key thing is the BMS is gone. Okay, so what we're looking at is Nissan Leafs all along the top, BMWs all along the bottom. Okay, so a few people have asked, so the BMW, the Nissan Leaf packs here, they are 7 modules series. So you have to kind of bear in mind that each module, they call those modules, not cells, each module has, if I remember rightly, 4 cells in each one. So 2 parallel, 2 series. So across the terminals you have 8 volts. Yeah, so large going to small, you'll have 8 volts there to there, 4 volts there to there, 4 volts. Okay, so I hope that explains very quickly. So in other words, this is 14S and 7P. Okay, so 14 series, 7 parallel. Or if you're doing it in Nissan modules, that is 7 modules long by 7 modules high. Okay, so that explains that. Now, strangely enough then, so each BMW pack, however, they are 12 in series. I think they are Samsung prismatic cells, if I remember rightly. These are only like the small ones, so these are like the 60 amp hours. Okay, so each Nissan Leaf from new is 63 amp hours. When I tested it, when I got one, because I know that they all came from the same battery on a car, so one tested out at 53 amp hours. So that's, if you imagine, like, you test one side and then from there you can work the mathematics out as to how many amp hours you have. So, but because these are 60 amp hours, meant to be new, they've also gone through degradation as well, so they've also dropped by the wayside. I think they're probably going to be about 52 amp hours, something like that, per cell. But because they're only 12, those are 14, so you need to add 2 more cells to get these to be compatible with that. Otherwise, you're going to have BMSs and batteries and stuff going all over the shop, and then you're going to overcharge those if you leave them as 12S and connect it to a 14S. Okay, so hence 2 extra cells per pack, 2 extra cells per pack. So what's actually happening on this side, we are stripping out down there and putting them also onto some Nissan Leaf. Thankfully, after a very long wait, I have been able to find eventually one person who had literally 5 left remaining. So they've now been retrofitted for a retrofit. And so these 2 packs have now been done. And the reason why, I have a suspicion, it's a suspicion though, that 2 things. So either we are operating on the wrong type of chemicals. So we all know that these are lithium ion, and then you get loads of different lithium 13 herbs and spices that go on in those. Okay, so what's happening is when you're operating midway, the bulk kind of 70% of your batteries, not quite at the top, not quite at the bottom, you're relatively close on the voltages with each other. As you get towards the top, what you find is the 18650s, they get there first. Oh yeah. So albeit they don't have the capacity, but the voltage is creeping up very, very quickly. Conversely, when you get towards the bottom, however, these are kind of like the first ones to go. So I don't know if that's a capacity or it's a chemical thing, but each one of these packs that I made up, each one's been tested. You can see the milliamp hours on each one when we built them up. Okay, so they should be good. But obviously something's not quite happy with it. So everything still comes all the way back, and under there is a balancer. Again, just purely the reason is they just don't, as much as you can get absolutely equi with everyone, I think unless you bought absolute brand new batteries, there's always going to be some creep between one voltage between one cell and the next cell in series. So the balancer just sits there and just nicks a little bit of energy from one and shoves it into the other one at some ridiculous like 2 amps. So that's neither here nor there to worry about, but good. If you want to mix cells, it's not to say it can't be done, but you find that there's a little bit of creep. It's more, you can mix cells, but you have to make sure the amp hours are the same, and obviously the voltages. Yeah. So, okay, so we've taken out the BMS, and haha, we're running on Batrium. Okay, so out of REC, BMS, and now into Batrium. So there's a good chance, I don't think there's anybody else that I can see or find that has done a review of both the REC and the Batrium. So, kind of like an eye-opener for everyone. So, obviously it doesn't come in the plastic enclosure there. It's Amazon, like £5 or something, really, oh my god, buy a ferrule crimping tool. So many hours saved. Again, if you're going to kind of mount it, I mean, yeah, okay, my setup's a bit janky, but the point is, I'm kind of always working on it, developing it, making it better, engineering. So you as an engineer, you don't just put stuff in and go, yeah, that's it, it's fun, it's done, I'm finished, and I'll walk away. You kind of always end up going, it's 96% done. I think we can actually squeeze another 1% out. So you're constantly tinkering, constantly fettling. There's always something that could be done better, quicker, more efficiently. So coming back to the BMS, so there's some really, really good things I like about the Batrium. And conversely, there's some really, really good stuff that I like about the REC BMS. Wi-Fi. Oh my god, thank god they've actually built something with Wi-Fi included. I would have preferred an Ethernet cable, but I'll settle for Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi is pretty good. 2 is, that's just a crappy fan, probably an old power supply unit or something, old computer, I don't know. So the good news is you've already got like effectively 2 switching relays on these. So one switching relay drives the fan, and then the other switching relay goes all the way around to over there. Okay, so that is focus. That is the solenoid that came out of the Nissan Leaf. You get 2 of those in the Nissan Leaf battery. So the reason is I had to swap it out with the original REC one. The REC one is designed for 48 volts. So I needed in this circumstance, I needed a 12 volt one, and the reason is, even though this is, well, they say 48 volt setup, realistically this is running like just shy of 60 volts fully charged, okay, is power. So you can power these boards up no problem from 48 volts, but by the time you go, I want a fan, okay, so I mean you'll have to go get a special fan for 48 volts just to put through the relay. So it's easier to keep, okay, all the bottom batteries here, and then do 12 volt here, so you get a little 60 volt DC to 12 volt step down. Was that buck converter? Yeah, buck, not boost. Buck converter to step it down, so that you have 12 volt here, which means you can run 12 volt there, which means you can go and run a 12 volt solenoid, and everything's a lot easier because it's all 12 volt. So what you have to remember though is, if you turn this on for the first time, and then your solenoid, which is that one, so those are, if I remember rightly, I think they're good for about 300 amps. I think that'll be like probably 300 amp in the moment, so you're talking 250 amp continuous. I mean, okay, work the math, 250 amps, and if you did that at 60 volts, so 60 times 250, it'll tell you how many watts. That's more than my inverters can even do, so I'm not even worried about that. I think maximum my inverters do is about 180, and I'd have to be discharging or charging at some ridiculous rate. But you got to remember, so when you turn your system on, that solenoid's going to drop, connect. All that power is going to inrush as quickly as it can through to your inverters. So all of this, you're all going to try dumping all of its power straight into your inverters. So when it does that, something has to be the weak point where it's basically the first point of contact. Like getting sparks on a booster cable, jumping your car. Okay, so you need to do a pre-charge circuit. So on the original REC BMS, you can actually buy as an optional. You get a little pre-charge time-controlled device. Basically, puts the power through a resistor, so it resists it down. So instead of it trying to whack through, 50 amps, 100 amps, 200 amps through to your inverters, you want to kind of only let like 100 watts, 200 watts, something like that, some ridiculous little amount, just to let it slowly charge it up, so you don't have any great big honking sparks, you don't weld your solenoid together and all the rest of it, because you're going to need that. So you see there, so that is a resistor that also comes out the Nissan Leaf. So bring it all the way back to there. So you do your 12 volt, right? You bring your cabling, so you can see here through to this little yellow switch. So what I've basically done is use that resistor over there, wind it all the way through to the pack, final pack voltage, which is like 60 volts, whatever it is, and we actually basically use it to pre-charge the system. See, so you can see what's this green one? Okay, one of these green ones somewhere around here, and see this green wire. Where are we? One of the wires goes through to the switch on the side. The other side of the switch connects to the end of the pack, so it's seeing the full volts. It then goes through the resistor, 100 watts, comes out, jumps onto the terminal, that goes through to the inverter. Okay, so by doing it that way, it means that you're only letting like 100 watts in, and so you can pre-charge the system manually by hand, and then you can allow the BMS and everything to pull the rest of it online. So it's literally just a safety feature. You get a few more miles out of your solenoid. Two is, I look at it this way, the solenoid in this circumstance is used as a safety device, so it's permanently pulled in, other than when there's a problem, and then it will release and let go. So there's no point on the first go when you turn everything on and you've just welded it together. Okay? Some of the things I don't like about Batrium, there's, I think everything's got its pro and cons. So this is the Watchman 5. Is it Watchman 5? Something 5. Okay, I'll go with Watchman 5. So the good news is that it only has 2 amps. No, not 2 amps. Half an amp balancing. I think if you looked at it and you went, all your batteries are the same, all your batteries came from the same pack, everything's great, everything's hunky, I don't think there would be a problem. But in the unrealistic world that you're going to grab batteries from BMWs, Nissan Leafs, eBay, bought, whatever, they're not always going to be the same. So I maybe it's just me being a little bit, it's a bit on the skinny scale. It doesn't mean it's too big, it's too small. I think it's just a fraction too small. But again, if you're running a balancer doing 2 amps, so really you got 2 amps plus an extra half amp, 2.5 amps of balancing. I think if you're any further out than that's already an enormous problem right there anyway. I've actually taken off. I have another balancer that I used to use here, less sophisticated than this one, but again, that's another one that I quite like for what it is. Different horses, different courses. This will just do 2 amps full stop. Doesn't matter if your battery is right at the top or the right at the bottom, it will only do 2 amps. You can't tell it that. The closer it gets to 4.15, throttle it down, only give it 0.1. You know, whereas the other one that I had, if I can have a dig around, hang on a minute, yeah, one-handed, right, so that one, and that's also an active balancer, so that will do the same as what this does, but this will ramp it, so it will start at, I think this is 5 amps, and then as the batteries get more and more full, closer to 4.1, 4.15, something like that, it ramps down ridiculously. So a little bit kinder, I think. Albeit though, these don't activate until it sees a 0.1 of a volt difference. So pros and cons. This, you can program this thing for like 0.01 or 0.005 or something like that. A ridiculously small amount. So yes, it's working all day long. But the good news is, just slightly different. You know, in the ideal situation, you go, I'll have one of these and one of those and really, yeah, okay. So you just get into a ridiculous amount of spending. So, you know, you can see even down here, yeah, we've got BMSs on each one of these BMW packs. Strictly speaking, because now we're running balancers, do we even need that? Extra protection, that's never going to hurt, but more to go wrong. Yeah, sometimes just the most simplistic is the best way forward rather than just going unnecessarily out of your way and just making it more and more difficult. I don't know. We've been alright. Not to say the next person is. They might just go, well, I'll tell you what, you're okay because you're only pulling some ridiculous, you know, what, 8 amps or something these ones charge at. You know, even though the whole system is fully charging, they'll do about 8 amps because by the time you divide everything up there. So, you know, they're not exactly what I would consider to be fully under stress. They're just another means of another safety device, you know, belt, braces and the lot. So, yeah, that's basically where we are with those. I think if it was a smaller system, they would be more useful. But then a smaller system, they would, however, be putting more under strain, so your amperage would go up. You know, if you're running a 10 kilowatt inverter and you were running it just on these BMW packs, you know, these would be pretty much on strain. I mean, don't get me wrong, they say like 30 amps, 60 amps, you know, that they will take, but the reality is, yeah, I'd be very suspicious, and I think banging 60 amps through those, or even 30 amps in some of them, I'd be a bit surprised if they would actually hold up. So I think that they're okay, like most things, tickling along that a little bit, but I think whacking it full of stuff is, you know, just ridiculous. You know, plus on top of that, really, the amount of balancing these are going to do. So let's go 0.5 amps, half an amp, 2 amps, right? The other one that was here does 5 amps. These things, 50 milliamp. So frankly, you're going to be waiting the whole year for it to balance once, maybe if you're lucky, and that's if they go out of balance. So, you know, hence you need to kind of connect like you would with your BMS tails, connect them through to the next pack, through to all the packs, and more or less interlink everything together, and then just let central units do their job. So there are some really good things that I do like. So Wi-Fi, I like having 2 relays to drive 2 really important things. Anybody who runs BMSs, oh my god, you wait till summer, that thing, you cook an egg on it. So having a fan that is actually controlled, oh, blessing. You can actually buy an expansion board that plugs in, you know, see that? Like a, I was going to say 30 pin, but I don't think it is. It's probably about 20 pin connection. So you can expand the board and put it onto more relays, more inputs, more. You know, so I love the Wi-Fi. I love the fact that you can download firmware and updates and flash them. So if you want to take this off and run it on a like a GoodWe or something, right? You could do that. Just reprogram the firmware and away you go. I really like things like that. Yeah, the shunt. Okay, I can understand that everybody in it is in the, and bottom line is everybody's got to make money. Yeah, it's true. You know, if there was no money involved, you couldn't make this. It would just cost too much. Okay, if you were a developer, and okay, yeah, true. But then you're just making it for yourself. You need to make it and make money out of it. You got to kind of charge for stuff. You know, don't get me wrong. We're all in. You know, we all understand. You know, but like good example is the shunt there. So you have to buy their shunt. So that is probably a 500 amp shunt, but it's like 500 amp 50 millivolt. Well, I've already got a 500 amp 50 millivolt, but I need that bit there that screws on the side. So I mean, why not just negate the coppery brassy terminal bit, right, and then just that bit? Just don't need that bit, just that. You know, but that's not what happens. And then even if you did, you'd have to buy the right size. So the shunts that I've got are like, you know, twice the size of that. You know, it's still 50 milliamp, millivolt, and 500 amps. You know, but so okay, little things like that is a little bit irritating. But the bigger picture is, do you want it to work, or did you want to save yourself like, you know, £20 or something? You know, you want it to work, really. It just starts to remove things, thinking, oh my god, is it my stuff, your stuff, whatever. So like everything, when you kind of got the time, which is nice, you do it properly. The last thing you want to do is kind of go over your work and then start also then pointing at something else that's also new at the same time. So it's not to say you never get teething problems. Oh my god, you will get teething problems. But the good news is, if you have the time, if you don't have the time, it's understandable to do something badly. Not dangerous, just badly. Yeah, but if you have the time and you're not tinkering and developing, yeah, just do it properly. So, you know, just spend the £2, go and buy a proper box, buy the glands stuff. Why the hell people don't want to gland things? Okay, and then you know, these are the kind of bits that I've had hanging around for years. So you know, these would have been rescued from probably an electrical cabinet or something like that. So they're just little tiny fuse holders. I'm not going to drop them out now. But again, if you've got the chance, you know, do it properly. Use a ferrule crimp everything properly. You're just not going to be second guessing whether you've done it correctly, whether the connections are good, whether the connections are bad. Yeah, just if you've got the time, do it. If you haven't got the time, yeah, understandable. But if you've got the time, and it's not just time, it's inconvenience. You know, yeah, this is a fully running system, and it's been installed now for over 2 years. Yeah, knocking on to almost well over 2.5 years. So you know, we don't really want to be decommissioning stuff every other day to give something else a go. It has to be done either one live or the minimum number of shutdown periods. So, you know, that's kind of more or less what's happened with here. But you know, very, very little else. Most systems should be, you know, fix and forget, and you know, and that's it. So